Dear students, welcome to the MOOC on India's foreign policy in a globalizing world. In this lesson, we are going to discuss about India's neighborhood policy. Main objectives of this lesson are to understand India's policy towards its neighbors, to know India's changing policy towards its neighbors, and to know India's priority in its foreign policy towards its neighbors. We begin with the first part of the lesson, in which we will discuss about India's foreign policy in general with its neighbors in South Asia. Geographically, India's neighborhood primarily includes countries such as Pakistan, Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka and the Maldives. Myanmar, although contiguous, is often overlooked due to the historical focus on South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation countries as India's neighbors. Its strategic location adjacent to India's northeastern states is crucial. Afghanistan, while not a direct geographical neighbor, can be considered as such due to Pakistan's illegal occupation of the northern areas in Jammu and Kashmir. Moreover, Afghanistan's full membership in SAARC reinforces its political inclusion in India's neighborhood. China, with its occupation of Tibet, has become a direct neighbor of India. The unresolved border issue between India and China is a significant concern in Indian foreign policy. China's actions have also impacted India's relations with its South Asian neighbors, making it India's most formidable neighbor, affecting its role not only in South Asia but also in the broader Asian context. Most of India's neighbors are significantly smaller in terms of geography, population and economy. Even Pakistan, the second largest country in South Asia, represents less than 15% of India's population. Despite the shared civilizational, cultural, linguistic and ethnic ties deeply rooted in history, these bonds have not necessarily brought the countries of the Indian subcontinent closer together. This lack of closer integration can be attributed to various factors, including the overwhelming civilizational influence of India, which can make neighboring countries feel insecure in their separate identities. Consequently, these countries often assert their distinct identities and present India as a potential threat and hegemony, allowing their political leaders to rally support on nationalist grounds. Geographically, India occupies a unique position in South Asia. It shares borders with all other South Asian nations, a distinction that sets it apart from the rest, as no other South Asian country shares borders with more than two South Asian nations. India's political landscape is characterized by well-entrenched democracy and the rule of law. Despite some shortcomings, India has a history of relatively peaceful and transparent transfers of power. In relative terms, India can be considered one of the most stable countries in the region, making significant strides in development even though its growth has recently decelerated. India's neighborhood, consisting of the member countries of the South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation, namely Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Nepal, Maldives, Pakistan and Sri Lanka, constitutes a fairly complex geographical entity. The constituent countries, both individually and collectively, represent a world of historical connections, shared legacies, commonalities and diversities, which are intricately reflected in their ethnic, linguistic, religious and political fabric. China and Myanmar, India's other two neighbors, are no less complex. At the regional level, India has disputes with various neighboring countries. India and Pakistan have disputes over Kashmir, Siachen, Sar Creek and the maritime boundary in the Arabian Sea. India and Bangladesh have disputes related to water sharing and migration. Nepal and India have a dispute over the Kalapani region. Boundaries are significant in defining national identity in the region, and states are often unwavering in their positions, resulting in ongoing disputes between India and its neighbors. These political differences and disputes have hindered the potential for economic cooperation in the region. Given India's large size and influence, neighboring countries sometimes perceive it as dominating the region and view it as a security threat. However, they have not collectively expressed these apprehensions against India, indicating their reluctance in antagonizing their influential neighbor. Many countries in South Asia exhibit limited interest in regional cooperation. This reluctance often stems from concerns that participating in regional cooperation could potentially erode their national identity and bargaining power. In negotiations, these countries may pursue greater advantages when engaging in bilateral agreements where they can secure more benefits and concessions. Consequently, they often prefer bilateral cooperation with India over regional arrangements. On one hand, India is actively working to enhance its bilateral relations with its neighbors, seeking to strengthen its ties within the region. Simultaneously, at the foreign policy level, India is making efforts to expand its outreach beyond South Asia. These efforts involve building strategic political and economic alliances on bilateral, regional and global scales. India is also focused on enhancing its capabilities and capacities to secure strategic autonomy and attain a greater power status. This recognition underscores the importance of improving relations with its neighbors, as it is a crucial step for New Delhi to extend its role beyond the region. India's increasing global presence is becoming more evident, making it challenging for its South Asian neighbors to overlook its influence. The SAARC countries have limited shared borders with each other, with the exception of India, which shares borders with all countries in the region. This geographical distance often results in a lack of cultural affinity and serves as a challenge in fostering regional ties. Relations between the smaller states in the region are typically less significant compared to their relations with the larger neighbor India. As smaller states, they commonly face similar challenges, including small economies, limited armed forces for territorial and maritime patrolling, and infrastructure building constraints. Consequently, these countries often rely to a considerable extent on India, which possesses greater capacities and resources to address their economic, infrastructural and other issues. India can provide economic assistance, investments and capacity building support, which makes it a crucial resource for the other SAARC members. I hope you understood about India's foreign policy in general with its neighbors in South Asia. We will discuss about India's neighborhood policy in the next video. Thank you.